There's a reason why so many folks seem to stop truly living around the age of 81. It's not just about a weakened body or the common ailments of old age. There's something deeper, more subtle, that seems to act as an invisible boundary. Over the years, many researchers have tried to understand this age milestone, but few explanations have been as intriguing as those revealed by Edgar Cayce, known for his insights on health and spirituality. According to him, certain life patterns and mental choices made decades earlier directly impact how long we live. And the most surprising thing is that this turning point begins long before 80, when it's still possible to take action and change course. Most people don't even realize when they've crossed that line of risk because everything seems normal until one particular detail starts to repeat itself in thousands of cases. Cayce was one of the few who dared to put a name to this hidden process. For decades, Cayce cautioned that it wasn't just our physical health that determined our longevity, but also the emotional and spiritual state we maintain after the age of 60. Many overlook this, thinking that simply maintaining a healthy routine is enough. But for Cayce, the body only follows what the mind and soul quietly decide. Upon reaching a certain age, especially after retirement, many fall into cycles of apathy, resentment, or deep loneliness. These feelings aren't just burdensome, they weaken the entire system. That's why today, when we observe people who surpass 90 with clarity and vigor, we realize that the secret isn't just in diet or exercise, it's in what they think, what they feel, what they choose to experience each morning. If this topic interests you, please consider subscribing and giving us a like. This helps us continue to bring you reflections that truly matter. What's most interesting in Cayce's observations is that he pointed to a sort of critical window between the ages of 60 and 70. During this period, he said, a person makes quiet decisions about how much longer they wish to remain in this world. These decisions aren't always conscious. They appear in small choices, in routines that are abandoned, in connections that are avoided, in hopes that are slowly lost. According to Cayce, the mind begins to send signals to the body, as if preparing a gradual exit. And when these messages become constant, the body simply obeys. Many people don't realize they're giving up long before their time. The biological clock responds not only to genetics, but also to what we decide internally, even without realizing it. In many accounts analyzed by scholars of Cayce's readings, common patterns emerge. Men and women who began to isolate themselves, who stopped learning something new, who stopped cultivating relationships, or who lived only on autopilot, were those who most often didn't make it past 81. This isn't a curse or an inevitable sentence, but rather a reflection of the progressive abandonment of one's own purpose. Cayce explained that vital energy, the energy that moves the body and gives meaning to the days, depends on the continuation of enthusiasm, curiosity, and emotional openness. When all of that ceases, the body interprets it as a signal to shut down. It's as if it's saying, since there's nothing more to seek, we can stop here. And it's this unconscious thought that becomes dangerous as it acts slowly, eroding the will to stay. According to Cayce, our thoughts and feelings hold a power that goes beyond what conventional medicine recognizes. He said that the heart and brain maintain constant communication and that what we feel continuously transforms our internal functioning. People who harbor old guilt, persistent grudges, or chronic discouragement end up generating hormonal and inflammatory imbalances that accelerate aging. It's no coincidence, according to him, that many cases of degenerative diseases begin precisely in phases of deep emotional crisis or after significant losses. Cayce insisted that learning to release, forgive, and reconnect with a reason to live could not only heal ailments but also realistically extend one's time of life with quality. And this doesn't require blind faith, just a sincere willingness to look inward. At 60, many think they've already lived everything they had to live. But Cayce saw this phase as a new beginning, perhaps the most important one. For him, it was at this point that the soul needed to decide whether to stagnate or evolve. And this choice wasn't made with grand speeches or promises, but with daily actions. Getting up with a purpose, however small, staying curious, sharing experiences, smiling again, even for no reason, These simple gestures are, in Cayce's view, a kind of invisible nourishment that sustains the body. Ignoring them is like leaving a plant without water for too long. It doesn't die suddenly, but it withers little by little until there seems to be nothing left to save. And that's where many are mistaken, believing that there's no possible return, when, in fact, the turnaround can happen at any age. There's an important detail in Cayce's readings that deserves attention. He said that aging is not in itself an exclusively physical process, but a reflection of the progressive loss of connection with something greater. According to him, those who maintained some kind of faith, active spirituality, or simply a sense of belonging to something beyond themselves, kept their bodies stronger even in the face of the natural limitations of age. This doesn't mean following a specific religion, but rather cultivating the idea that there's still meaning in continuing. People who feel useful, who share what they know, who listen to others attentively, tend to show slower signs of wear and tear. It's not just what you do with your body, but what you feed your mind and spirit. Cayce saw this harmony as a silent but extremely powerful key that can change a person's entire destiny after the age of 60. Another interesting point is that for Cayce, food also fulfilled a deeper role than just nourishing the physical body. He said that certain foods carried not only chemical properties, but also specific vibrations that could influence the balance of the body and mind. Fresh, natural, and simple foods, according to his guidance, helped to maintain mental clarity and emotional disposition. Processed foods full of preservatives contributed to the dulling of the senses and increased general fatigue. He recommended balanced consumption, always with full attention to the act of eating. Eating with guilt, for example, was seen as a serious mistake, because what nourishes the body must also nourish the soul. When food becomes punishment or emotional compensation, the body interprets it as something harmful, even if the nutritional value seems adequate. Cayce also made a distinction between aging and getting sick. For him, aging is natural, but getting sick constantly and rapidly is in most cases linked to the abandonment of simple practices that keep vital energy in motion. He spoke a lot about the importance of walking outdoors, breathing deeply, maintaining contact with nature, and avoiding environments full of tension. According to his readings, the environment directly influences the emotional state and consequently the functioning of the body. People who live surrounded by conflict, noise, and continuous agitation tend to develop more ailments, while those who seek peaceful, quiet, and balanced environments reap visible benefits in their health. This perception, although it seems obvious, is ignored by many, who become accustomed to chaos and accept suffering as an inevitable part of their routine. When observing older adults who maintain a long and healthy routine, it's common to notice one trait they share. They're all mentally and emotionally active. For Cayce, the mind needs constant challenges. He said that no matter the age, the brain continues to create new connections whenever it's stimulated with something new. Learning a language, playing an instrument, writing letters, talking about deep subjects, all of this keeps the mind alive. The opposite is also true. When a person begins to repeat the same gestures, the same words, and the same thoughts for months or years, without seeking something new, the brain begins to settle. This accommodation, Cayce said, was the harbinger of a body that would begin to shut down little by little. And as simple as it may seem, he insisted that even a change in the route of daily walks was enough to reactivate important circuits in the brain. Human contact also occupied a central place in Cayce's guidance. He said that isolation is one of the most subtle forms of self-destruction. Many people, as they get older, distance themselves from social interaction because they believe they are no longer relevant. They stop calling, visiting, or inviting. And with that, loneliness grows in silence. Cayce saw the act of sharing stories, listening to others, and maintaining bonds as a source of vital energy. He affirmed that the human heart needs constant exchange. Feeling heard, welcomed, understood is an invisible medicine that strengthens even the body. Even simple conversations about the day or about old memories are capable of igniting something that seemed dormant. And when this human warmth is constant, the body responds with more strength, more resistance, and fewer signs of premature exhaustion. There's also a less commented on but fundamental aspect: accepting one's own time. Cayce observed that many get sick not from aging, but from resisting aging. This internal conflict between what the body no longer does and what the mind would like it to do generates frustration, anguish, and guilt. He defended the idea of accepting the phases of life with serenity, recognizing limitations without clinging to them. This doesn't mean giving up, but adapting. A body that no longer runs can walk with pleasure. Hands that tremble when writing can still caress with affection. Looking kindly at the transformations of time helps to keep the mind at peace. And, for Cayce, a mind at peace is the greatest ally of health. Because when a person welcomes themselves as they are, the body understands that it's still welcome. Another point that Cayce was keen to reinforce was the importance of forgiveness. He stated that old grievances, even when buried in silence, continue to vibrate inside the body. And this vibration, according to him, weakens the organs over time. Forgiving, for Cayce, wasn't forgetting what happened, but freeing oneself from the weight that resentment brings. Many older adults carry unresolved stories with family, friends, or even themselves, and even believing that they have already overcome them, they still react with pain when the subject returns. Cayce said that these emotional knots prevent the natural flow of vital energy. Releasing the past, talking about it lightly or even with gratitude, is an exercise in deep healing. With each layer of forgiveness, the body becomes lighter, freer, more capable of resisting time. Not by miracle, but because the weight of the unspoken, once eliminated, opens space for vitality to circulate again. Cayce also spoke about the power of words. He said that everything we repeat frequently becomes reality in the body. A person who lives saying that they are tired, sick, or too old is, in fact, teaching their body to behave that way. On the other hand, those who repeat phrases of hope, even in difficulties, help the body maintain the necessary encouragement to continue. For him, human speech is a form of direct command to the nervous system, and when this command is constant, it becomes a pattern. Therefore, Cayce recommended paying attention to how we talk about ourselves, especially after the age of 60. Words are not just expressions of thought, but seeds that can flourish or dry up from within. Choosing carefully what is said is a practical and powerful way to positively influence one's own health. Many wonder why some people, even if physically frail, maintain a contagious energy. For Cayce, this is explained by the presence of what he called an active purpose. Having a reason to wake up, even if simple, creates an internal force that sustains the body beyond what is expected. It could be taking care of a grandchild, writing a journal, growing plants, teaching something to someone, or simply making someone smile. What matters is not the grandeur of the purpose, but its truth. When life seems useful, the body remains willing. When it seems useless, the body falls silent. Many older adults lose this sense of usefulness and, without realizing it, begin to surrender to apathy. Cayce insisted that the secret was not to seek great achievements, but to keep the flame burning with what is possible. A life with purpose, however small it may seem, is what separates those who truly live from those who merely survive. Over the years, many of Cayce's recommendations have been viewed with skepticism, but today science is beginning to confirm part of what he said intuitively. Current studies show that emotional state directly influences immunity, longevity, and even cellular regeneration. Research on epigenetics reveals that our thoughts and habits can activate or deactivate genes related to aging and disease. Although Cayce didn't use scientific terms, he already stated that the body responded to the mind with precision, and this reinforces the idea that aging well is, in large part, a daily choice. A choice that involves what we think, what we feel, who we interact with, and how we decide to react to situations. He believed that aging wasn't a punishment, but a phase of profound wisdom, where the soul could finally flourish, as long as it was well cared for. Many older adults, upon hearing these reflections, feel that it may be too late to change. Cayce responded to this firmly: it's never too late. The soul doesn't age, and the body always responds to a new stimulus, however small. One more walk per week, a call that's been postponed for months, a change in recurring thought, all of this counts. He said that each gesture is a message to the body saying, "I'm still here, I still care." And with that, the body reanimates. It's not about reversing time, but about reconnecting with it, about remembering that there's still much to live, even if the world outside says otherwise. Cayce saw time as an ally, not as an enemy, and he believed that every person, by accepting their age with dignity and purpose, becomes a living example of how life can be full until the last day. Interestingly, Cayce also warned that many older adults stopped dreaming. Not in the literal sense of sleep, but of wanting something, of making plans, of visualizing possibilities. He said that the ability to dream keeps the spirit young and the body awake. Even at 80 or 90 years old, he encouraged people to think about what they would still like to see, do, or feel. Dreaming isn't childish, it's vital. It's what gives movement to the days and creates positive expectations about tomorrow. When an older adult stops dreaming, they begin to say goodbye to life in silence. Therefore, Cayce recommended that each person keep a small list of wishes, however simple they may be. A place to visit, a food to savor, a letter to write. These dreams don't need to be realized all, but the simple fact that they exist already brings energy to the body. There's also an important observation about the fear of death. Cayce said that the constant fear of dying is a slow poison. He believed that death is part of life, and that accepting it with serenity is essential to living well until the end. According to him, those who live trying to avoid death all the time end up forgetting to live in the present. This creates a state of internal tension that compromises health and peace. Accepting that life has a cycle is liberating. It allows each day to be lived with more presence and less anxiety. Cayce suggested that, instead of fearing the end, people should focus on leaving good memories, on making a difference in someone's life, on cultivating what remains. The legacy of a life lived with awareness is worth more than years accumulated in empty counting. The true victory, he said, lies not in living longer but in living better, with meaning and presence. Cayce also spoke frequently about the importance of inner silence. In an era already marked by excess information, he said that the constant noise of the mind prevents the soul from manifesting. Even among the oldest, the habit of occupying oneself with worries, judgments, and repetitive memories exhausts vital energy. He recommended daily moments of pause, not as a spiritual obligation, but as a need for internal listening. Sitting in silence, listening to one's own body, paying attention to breathing. This helps to reconnect what was lost along the way. Silence heals because it allows the person to perceive what they are truly feeling. Many older adults, when practicing this, report improvements in sleep, anxiety, and even physical pain. For Cayce, silence is a bridge between the body and the soul, and crossing it every day is a way to maintain balance. Finally, one of the most repeated messages by Cayce was about gratitude. He said that giving thanks, even in difficult moments, is a way to strengthen the spirit and calm the body. It's not about ignoring suffering, but about choosing to see also what is still good. Many older adults who maintain this habit report more lightness, more encouragement, and even less pain. Gratitude, Cayce said, changes the way the body responds to the world, and the more sincere it is, the more potent it becomes. Giving thanks in the morning upon waking up, for simple food, for a conversation with someone, for a gesture of affection. These small daily thanks create a positive internal vibration that protects the body and strengthens the mind. It's a simple, accessible, and real way to take care of one's own health. And perhaps, more than any medicine, this is the secret of those who make it past 81 with lucidity and serenity. When gathering all these teachings, we realize that Cayce wasn't talking about magic formulas or empty promises. He offered an integrated view of life, where mind, body, and spirit walk together until the end. For him, true longevity wasn't measured only in years, but in how those years are lived. Each choice, each thought, each gesture has a real impact on how we age. And by applying his advice simply and consistently, many have managed to cross the decades with more balance, autonomy, and joy. It's not about avoiding old age, but about embracing it with dignity and awareness. This perspective is liberating because it shows that it's never too late to change. Even if the body already has signs of wear, there is always something that can be done. Vitality doesn't depend only on youth, but on the inner disposition to continue living with meaning. Cayce ended many of his messages with the same phrase, "Live with purpose and serve with joy." He believed that human beings were made to evolve until the end of life, and that each phase brings its own learnings and forms of contribution. Aging doesn't mean fading away, but illuminating with more wisdom. People who maintain this vision transform the environment around them, inspire new generations, and become bridges between the past and the future. This is the great legacy that many leave without knowing, the example of how it's possible to age with love, strength, and presence. And even if most people don't make it past 81, as Cayce warned, there's something even more important than the number of years. It's what you do with each day you have, and if there's time, there's still possibility. The clock doesn't stop, but the course of life can always be adjusted with awareness and courage. If this content made sense to you, share it with someone who may benefit from these reflections. Leave a comment with your opinion or some experience you want to share. And if you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to continue receiving content that values life in all its phases. The most important thing is not what you've lived so far, but what you choose to live from now on. May each new day be seen as a new chance to take care of yourself, to start over, and to keep the flame of existence alive. Edgar Cayce believed that everyone has within themselves the power to prolong and transform their own journey. Just remember that it's never too late, and that life, even in its final moments, still has much to offer. Thank you for your attention so far. May you continue with health, lucidity, and purpose.